Hi everyone, Peter here once again. This is Thailand Bound, and if it's your first time to the channel, I talk about everything Thailand. Going to make something a bit of a different video today. I've got a guest on. Do you remember Michael Parrotte? He was with me. We did the video on the dating scams, and you guys kind of found that quite interesting. Well, he's back in today. I've asked him to come on this vlog, on this video. One of the biggest, well, not one of the biggest questions that get asked, left on comments and emailed to me. When I tell these stories about guys who get ripped off by bar girls, they lose houses, they lose everything. A lot of people will come back and they'll say, how can these guys be so stupid? They must be really dumb. And I'm not an expert to talk about that. I've seen things like, I spent a lot of time in Thailand and I've seen this happen, but Michael has more experience with the psychology behind this. So I'm not going to waste any time. I'm going to bring Michael in, and Michael's actually in Washington, in the USA. I'm going to bring him in now, and we're just going to have a discussion about this subject. How can guys be so stupid? Are they dumb?
สวัสดีค่ะ
Good afternoon, Michael. It's it's early afternoon where you are, I believe.
That's correct.
How's the weather where you are? You know, as British like to talk about the weather.
Well, unfortunately today it's a little gloomy and rainy, but it's warm.
Okay, good. All right, we're having some quite nice weather here, but that's not what we're here to talk about, is it? Right, so you heard the intro there, Michael. You have a lot of experience. I can see by the clocks in the background there, you know, you're tuned into lots of different companies. You have a company, you have to travel worldwide. You know, you're going anywhere from Pakistan to Thailand you're all over the place. I know, because we've had these conversations. I mean, before we get into this video, what do you think about what's going on at the moment in Thailand with the dates? You know, they'll say this date's opening, then that date's opening, because you have to go to Thailand. How are you finding it?
Yeah, based on their October 1st opening, I booked a quite expensive ticket to leave on October 26th. And when I woke up the next morning, I saw the news that two different agencies were fighting, and the one agency was saying it was never going to open on October 1st. They said October 15th. So that just started the typical, you know, Thai system. And then within 2 days, that had changed to October 26th. And then last night before I went to bed, now they're saying November 1st.
So realistically, if you were a betting man, I know it's a difficult question to answer. It's like, how long is a piece of string? But realistically, when do you think Thailand will open up again?
Well, for my purposes, it's open, because when I went last year, I went in December 14th of 2020. So, and I stayed in hotel quarantine and was released the day before New Year's. And that was not something I want to do again, because it was very boring to be locked in a hotel room for 14 days. Sure. But the Phuket program is 14 days in the whole island. And if push came to shove, I could get the people I need to do business with to come to Phuket, and 14 days on all of the Phuket Island. Okay, I'd rather not be restricted to one area, but that's doable. And I think that they've hurt the economy so bad, and there's no social safety net for the lower income people, and the middle income people are hurting. I think the economic pressure is huge, and a lot of other countries in the world are going to a policy of, you know, we got to live with this thing. You know, if we'll wait till it's over, we're never going to open again. So I think there's a lot of pressure on them to open. And so it could be as soon, I think, as November 1st, but I can't imagine it being later than January 1st.
We'll move away from this subject very quickly now, but I'll just add this in. The problem for most guys from the UK, they'll head over to Thailand for a holiday, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, up to a month. The problem we've got right now is Thailand is on the UK's red list. So even if you manage to get over to Thailand, when you come back to the UK, you have to quarantine in a government hotel 10, 11 days, something like that. You're talking a couple of £1,000, and people they're not going to do it while it's like this.
I heard yesterday they're getting rid of that program.
You've heard this. You know, you've heard this question so many times before. You get guys, they'll go to a town like Pattaya, and basically what happens is they go there on their own. They're either they're divorced, or they're single, or they've come out of a bad marriage. And just for anybody who hasn't been to this channel before, I'm talking about guys who go to Pattaya. Is one of the biggest party towns. It's quite famous for the wrong reasons. But basically, these guys will go to Pattaya and they meet new friends, girlfriends, and some of them get in a lot deeper than they intended. And these girls can be very manipulative, and a lot of these guys will lose lots of money, houses. So, you know, I've got stories on the channel, Michael, real sensible guys like school teachers, that caliber of person who go there and end up losing a house to a Thai bar girl. I mean, what's your theory behind it, or do you know what's behind it?
Well, of course, you know, human beings are a myriad of a billion different thoughts and feelings and behaviors, but I break this group down into three basic larger groups of people. You have some group of men, it's just their personality, the way they relate with women. It has nothing to do with travel or Thailand or young girls or anything. You could see these people in the US or in the UK or anywhere. You see them with their own wives, their own girlfriends. They're just always in this situation of having this idealized version of women or wives or girlfriends, and they're constantly taken advantage of. And you see it any country in the world, and you can't really predict it, because sometimes in every other aspect of life, the guy could be a big, strong sports guy. He could be a successful business person. Guy could even be a mafia person. But when it comes to women, they're jellyfish and they're run all over the place. That's one group of people. Yeah. Then another group, which is accentuated in Thailand because of the kind of destination Thailand is people that maybe aren't that way. They're just relatively normal, but they just gotten out of a bad relationship, especially a long-term marriage where they haven't been happy for some time. And they get to Thailand. They make a lot of decisions that they wouldn't have done otherwise, because they're just, first of all, they've been out of the market for a long time, so they don't have any experience. So the second group of people, they haven't had a lot of experience. They're very hungry, lonely, and they make decisions and do things they wouldn't normally have done if they were had been in a more stable relationship or had been in a more recent dating environment. And then the third group of people, and you see this I see this when I go to Russia and Ukraine a lot, and this only pertains to Western men, and particularly to men from Anglo countries. You know, I'm talking about the US, Canada, UK, Australia, New Zealand. Sure. Is that women have become so unfeminine. Even if you manage to get one that's not overweight and that's physically attractive, their personalities are not attractive. They're so unfeminine. And when you get around a woman in any culture, it could be in Asia or in Eastern Europe, that's very feminine, they lose their minds, because it's a natural biological attraction, and it's something that they haven't experienced either ever or in a long time. And again, like the guy that came out of the bad relationship, they make a lot of emotional decisions and aren't really logical about it.
What do you feel mental health plays much of a role in some of these cases where these guys fall down with these girls?
Sure, it only exacerbates it. I would not say that the majority of these people have any. I mean, we all have some mental health issues, but I'm talking about to the point where you need medical treatment or assistance or therapy. I don't see these cases having a higher percentage of those people than you'd find in any normal problem in life. But they certainly exist, and the ones you see that end in complete disaster or even suicide, obviously those are the ones that stick out as something was, very, very wrong.
Yeah. The thing is, the reason I'm making this video today is, one, you can give more of an explanation than I can. But originally a doctor, as I told you, a doctor wrote to me he was from the States. I think he's a psychologist, but he deals with people with mental problems. And he sent me a nice long email explaining, I can't read the whole email out. It's far too long. But you've had a copy of it, so you've seen what he said, and it opened my eyes up. But although we said we wouldn't read any of it, I just want to read a small passage that he says, because it's more for people. I'll get people leave comments on the channel, and they're just totally like, the guy must be an idiot. Let me just read this. This is what the psychologist he says. He says a lot, but I'll just take a small piece. He writes, With bar girls, we assume that her jealousy is proof of her feelings towards us, when the truth is that she is only worried about humiliation and loss of face. We put ourselves at the mercy and get taken to the cleaners. How could the guy be so stupid, says the armchair laptop critic. Intelligence has nothing to do with it. It can happen to anybody at any age. What would you say to somebody who say, well, no, it never happened to me. I'm too switched on. I've been to Thailand too many times and no way.
Well, I'd say a couple things. There's more than one reason that it happens. It's not so simple. I do agree with what he wrote, though, that it could happen to all groups of people. It's not directly related to intelligence. In fact, the biggest target of these girls are people that are the most wealthy. And if someone's wealthy, unless they inherited it, it's a good chance that they're actually have above average IQ because they've been successful in a business. So it's not a matter of intelligence. It maybe is a matter of emotional intelligence. And you can meet a lot of people, very wealthy people, billionaire people that are very emotionally mature, especially when it comes to women. It's quite amazing to see how many guys are multi-millionaires or billionaires and are completely out of, like a fish out of water when it comes to dealing with women.
Yeah, I think your average guy, it happens to in Pattaya, they're not millionaires. They're normal working guys who they bought their own 3-bedroom house in the UK or wherever they come from, and they separate from their wife. The children have grown up. They go out, they meet a girl, and to cut through the chase, they end up that they want to stay in Thailand. They know they need money. They sell their house. But what I've seen, I know you're a guest on here, but I'll just, because I spent a long time in Thailand, so I'll just, the way I see it happen, I've seen it happen a lot of times in Pattaya, and I've tried to warn people, but you can't warn people. You tell them and they'll say things like, oh no, she doesn't want to work in the bar, or she's just arrived and she's different to the rest, or, you know, the girl will convince the guy. And what it's always the same story that I've seen. I'll ask you about your experiences, what you've seen in a minute, Michael. But from what I've seen in Pattaya when I lived there for a couple of years and my trips down there, guys would go out there. They'd maybe been out there 2 or 3 times. They weren't all first-time travelers. They'd meet. They'd have a few girlfriends that they'd meet, go out to dinner with, whatever. But they'd meet one particular girl that she just pushed the right buttons. He felt that she's really nice and she's different. There's just something about her. And the girls can be quite good at pushing buttons, as I say, and saying the right things. And it starts off in a small way where the guy thinks he kind of thinks he's a bit of a player. He's going to go to different bars and what have you every night. But he gets pulled back to this girl maybe a second time and then a third time just because he thinks she's a nice girl. And then it becomes a habit, but nothing more than that. And then feelings start to develop in. So then what happens is the guy starts paying her bar fine every night because he just can't stand the thought of somebody else meeting up with her. And it goes from that, then first small meetings, into he's sending her money because he doesn't want her to work in the bar. He goes home and he thinks she's not working in the bar, but of course they always are. It's never enough. And then it escalates from there. She'll start making the suggestions. Why didn't you come and live here? If you sold your house and your car, we could open a bar. And it just goes, they have blinkers in front of their eyes and they just get totally scammed. You must have some experiences outside it, because Thailand's not as bad as some countries, is it?
Well, for this kind of recreational activity, it's probably the #1 destination in the world. But this pattern that you're talking about is a biological pattern that exists everywhere we're human beings. The problem that you're describing is a biological issue. It exists in every country, regardless of the income, culture, or anything else. Thailand is overrepresented because it's a unique holiday destination with an economic and cultural situation that has created this huge industry of girlfriends, and however you would like to refer to them as. Going back to the issue though of wealth, though, I understand what you're saying about the average UK guy that goes over there, but as well as I do that to these girls, those people are rich. So in their eyes, they're millionaires. And that's part of the problem too, is that the expectation of these men is very high, and it's very hard to explain to someone in Thailand that, one, you don't make as much money as they think, and two, everything costs more. Yes, maybe you
Mm.
make 3 times more, but everything costs 3 times as much. So you don't have all this excess cash laying around in bags that you can send back to them every month.
You know, the one, you know, I'm actually married, so I don't go hang about. I don't go with these girls, but I do enjoy going into the bars. I've had friends who own bars, so I've managed to talk to the girls and get them to tell me straight what they're thinking. And the problem is, in a place like Pattaya, is these guys, he could be a postman and he saves up for 50 weeks of the year to get to Pattaya for 2 weeks. So of course, when he's there, he's thrown the cash around. We call them 2-week millionaires. And the girls see this and think, wow, this guy's loaded. He's ringing the bell. He's buying lots of drinks. You know, he doesn't even look at prices. But of course, when he returns back home, he's just a normal guy again. And I think this is half the problem.
It's probably more than half the problem, but that's something completely in control of that individual. I mean, I would never travel like that. I would never throw money around and waste it. I'm not cheap, but I'm frugal. I don't waste money, and I don't operate like that. So some of these guys, you know, going to the question of this video and everything, a lot of this responsibility has to fall back on the shoulders of these men. And what they're doing. I mean, it's not like there isn't books and YouTube channels out there where they couldn't get all the information and then think, okay, I got to have a little bit different plan about how I'm going to go about doing this than what I was going to do.
You're right about the you know, the more money somebody's got, if you put 6 guys in a room and a bar girl comes in and she's making her choice, she'll want the guy who's got the most money. I'll tell you a little story from years ago. I was in a bar. It was Pat Pong, actually. I was there with a friend. We were only out drinking. That was all. We sat next to the stage. I was here, and a friend of mine, I'm going back 15 years ago. He was a little bit older than me. He sat there, and a girl came up to me and said, oh, you know, what's your name? You're on holiday, the usual sort of thing. And she said, what do you do? I won't speak like her, but basically she was saying, what do you do for a living? And I said, oh, fly, you know, I'm pilot. I'm number 2. And she said, your friend? I said, oh, him. He's a big boss. He's the number 1 pilot. And she immediately stopped talking to me, went round to the other side of him and put a hand out to shake his hand. So, yeah, you're right.
Yep. See, if I was in a room with 5 guys, regardless of what the real income was, I would want to be viewed as the person with the lower of whatever the 5 was. If the other 5 were millionaires, I'd want to make $500,000 for exactly that reason, because you weed out the really aggressive gold diggers right off.
Yeah.
And I know from my own experience in life that a lot of times some of the wealthiest people I've met are the most unassuming. They're wearing blue jeans and a t-shirt and they're unbelievably wealthy, but the people that show off all the gold and Rolex watches and all the bling, half the time, you know, they don't have nearly as much money, or they're drug dealers. But
Yeah, sure. And that's the worst thing to do in Thailand.
Yeah.
Get caught selling drugs or taking drugs.
Anything in Thailand that could result even in 1 hour incarcerated in a Thai prison.
Exactly. You and me both. So let me ask you a question. I don't know if you know the answer to this, but I'll throw it your way. There has been cases where guys have, not very many, admittedly, but there's been guys who have gone on vacation or holiday and they've gone into bars and they've met some girl who's working in that bar. And you know what I mean by working. And he's taken her out and they have developed a relationship, and the guy has taken that girl back to his country. 9 times out of 10, she goes off with his friend or it doesn't work for whatever reason. But there are cases where it does work. They stay together long term. Now she's a bar girl. She's working. He takes her out the bar, gets her back to his country, Australia, wherever it is. And they end up having a couple of kids together and they stay together for 20, 30 years. Why do you think that sometimes happens to some girls and not others?
I don't know. I'm a big cynic, because I don't believe that unless you live inside a house with a husband and wife, or unless you had cameras in the room, that anyone really knows. And I think that most of the time when people tell about those stories, they really have no idea what's going on the inside. Sometimes those people, we think of a bad marriage when people are fighting, or when maybe the woman runs off and financially damages the man, or takes kids, or takes the money. But there's a lot of marriages where people just get to a point where there's nothing there anymore, but they don't hate each other and they've got a house together and they basically have separate lives. And on the outside, their marriages seem completely normal to everyone else looking on the outside, but they're sleeping in different beds and they don't have any relationship. They might even be dating other people. So I don't know. But, you know, you could find someone that smoked cigarettes and lived to be 110 years old, and someone that quit their job, won the lottery too. I wouldn't base any strategy on finding a long-term wife in a bar or any kind of a recreational activity like that. It's hard enough to find one anywhere, in any country, in any environment, let alone that one.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot of married men in Pattaya take their wedding rings off and say, no, I'm not married, for obvious reasons. But, you know, they're very clever in the bars. What they do is because it's a hot country, and within the first day, you'll get a little bit of a tan. So if you tell a Thai bar girl, no, I'm not married, first thing she'll do, she'll grab your hand like this and she'll look, because there'll be a shadow where the ring was. And, you know, they're so clever, these girls like that.
I'm not sure they're so clever as that the men are so inexperienced. I mean, you can see this in any country. It's not Thai. It's the same in Russia or Ukraine, because they have so many bus loads and plane loads of men coming in on Russian wife tours, Ukrainian wife tours. I mean, it's not that the girls are so clever, it's that they've seen it all. The agencies have taught them, the other girls have taught them. I mean, it's been going on for at least since 50 years. It's not anything new. But you know, again, the guys, all this stuff can be researched. Every little thing, down to how to have multiple phones, how to use dating apps, wedding rings, saying the wrong thing, using the right social media, like you mentioned many times, Line. I couldn't underestimate the importance of Line. If you're going to go to Thailand and you expect to have any decent trip and be able to function as a normal person, you got to have Line. I don't care if you have WhatsApp, Viber, Telegram, Signal, Facebook. I don't care. You got to have Line.
Number one, isn't it? They
date online, they marry online, they buy stuff online, they order stuff online, line. So, I mean, and every country is different, because outside of, if you go to Vietnam, they use something else. You go to China, it's WeChat. You go to Korea, it's Kakao Talk. I mean, you have to know the country you're going to and do some research.
Yeah, I mean, I hadn't heard of Line. Years ago, I heard about it, but I hadn't heard of Line. Obviously in the UK, WhatsApp is very big, and I hadn't heard of Line. But obviously, when you're in Thailand, yeah, like you say, everybody uses Line. It was the first thing I downloaded, you know, because anybody you talk to over there, they all use Line, like you say.
Yeah, and banking, topping up your SIM card. I mean, it's incredible. It's the best program out there. I use it here. I force people, even the U.S. that never heard of it, if they want to talk to me. So I refuse to talk to people on Facebook. So
I remember when
you download Line.
I remember when we first hooked up, when we first had a chat, you were like, no, get off WhatsApp, get onto Line, and that's how I contact you now, obviously. So the other thing is, I think it's really, when I make a lot of these videos I make, obviously they're other guys' stories, and you were the person who contacted me first and said that some guys actually learn from these videos. I only put them out there as entertainment because I couldn't get to Thailand. I think I've mentioned this before. You said to me, guys kind of learn stuff from this. But I always like to make it very, very clear. I'm not anti-bar girl or anti-GoGo girl or anything like that. I just don't like seeing guys lose everything they've got because they just haven't got any experience. I mean, those girls are a lot of fun. I've sat in bars and played Connect Four with them and I had a joke. They've got a great sense of humor, but I just think you've got to be careful. It's like anything. If you're a tourist and you go into that environment, then you have to put your guard up a little bit. People, because it's a friendly country, you're in a friendly environment, it's hot, the girls are having fun with you. People let their guard down. This is what I see. People let their guard down, and they get taken advantage of. And by the time they realize, you know, it's too late. It's too late. I've seen guys jump off balconies, not literally watched them jump off, but I've had a very good friend jump off a balcony because he lost everything. And I'm sure it's not just Thailand. I mean, I'm sure you've been to the Ukraine, as you said, you've been to Russia. I'm sure it all happens there. It all happens there as well, doesn't it?
Well, it happens in the UK too. I guarantee you many more men jump off of roofs of buildings because of their wives in the UK than guys jump off of roofs in Thailand because of their girlfriends. Men kill themselves because of relationship problems is the number one reason. Male suicide is 2 to 3 times higher than female suicide. And the overwhelming reason that men kill themselves is things to do with women.
Right, yeah. I had I put a call out this week twice. Once by post, and once the second one's on a video that's going out this Saturday, my stories video. But I had a Western woman contact me, and she said to me in the message, she said something like, I can't remember word for word, but she said something like, look, I am subscribed to your channel, which surprised me because, you know, I don't know. Well, I went in and checked it. I've got just under 1,000 women who are subscribed. So I suppose they like the stories. But she said to me, I don't know if you realize it, but there's a lot of Western women who are married to foreigners who have gone to work in Bangkok or somewhere else in Thailand. And she says they suffer depression, loneliness, fierce jealousy from the Thai girls. They didn't know what they were in for when they went there. And this particular lady said in her group of 14 couples that she knew, only her and her husband came back to the States as a couple. The rest had all broken up because the guys are, you know, whatever they did. I mean, do you see a lot of that?
Absolutely. I saw that was the first thing I noticed when I went to Russia 20 years ago. I went to Moscow and I was just shocked because the US has such a problem with obesity. And I'm walking down the main street, Tverskaya Street near the Red Square. And there was like no overweight people. And all the girls were like supermodels. And I remember thinking that first day I was there, it's like, because I went to school in Paris. My father worked for IBM and we had a 3-year assignment in France. And I was thinking to myself on that first trip to Russia, if you're a woman and your husband's been transferred to Moscow for a 2, 3, 4-year assignment with any international company.
An American woman, you mean, yeah?
Or British or Australian,
yeah, yeah.
Western
woman, yeah.
You know, the chances of you coming home with a husband is very little because these women aren't just physically beautiful. They're feminine. They're polite. They're well-mannered. They take care of themselves. They dress perfectly. They're respectful. Western women have become so unattractive because of feminism and because of diet and lack of exercise. They don't even realize it. So they come and they can't compete at all. But it's not a Thailand situation. It could be Vietnam. It could be Japan. It could be Korea. It could be Russia, Ukraine, Eastern Europe. It could be anywhere. Even to some extent, you know, the situation. I had a close female friend come back from Spain a few weeks ago, and she was saying, wow, you know, the Spanish women are so much more, you know, fit than American women. But that's not saying much because we have just a tremendous problem with weight that's only gotten worse over the last 18-month lockdown situation. So, yeah. But yes, what you're saying is absolutely true. And if I was a woman and my husband got transferred to Bangkok, I think I would have to have a long. You have to be competitive. You either got to go on a diet, get to the gym, and maybe start reading some books on how to be a lady, or just bag it and just forget it because you're not going to have a chance in the world.
You see, I never had this problem. I mean, I suppose I've been very, very lucky because my wife is Asian. She's not Thai, but she's from South Korea. But I've been with her over 30 years now, but she's got the same physical build as any other Asian, you know, Thai, Japanese. They don't tend to get as big. I don't want to be rude to Western women out there, and I'm not bashing them. I'm just trying to make a comparison that when I lived in Bangkok, my wife, the reason I was able to go out to bars, and people ask me, well, you were married, doesn't your wife, didn't she get jealous? Or this YouTube channel that you do, doesn't she does, surely she mustn't like it. But you know, she's got a different mentality. She's got that she's got a kind of mentality where, you know, she went out and did her thing. I met her Korean friends. They went out to eat. I'd go out with my friends, but I knew not to cross over the line. I mean, I'd go to the bar areas, you know, I'd play games with girls at bars and stuff, but she knew I did that. Yeah. And I've even been into bars with her. So I've never really had that problem where I've looked at my wife and thought, well, look at her and look at this Thai girl over here. What a difference. Yeah. And I
haven't met your wife, but I assume it's not just a mentality, that it's a behavior, because all the Korean women I know, even the ones that live here in the United States, you know, they're quite feminine and quite respectful. I mean, you don't see, you know, when I went down to the Women's March in DC with the 400,000 angry women wearing the pink pussy hats and everything, you didn't see any Asian women down there, do you? No. They have a respect for themselves and respect for femininity, and
And it's funny, you know, after that statement I've just made about I wasn't tempted or anything, which is true. People find it hard to believe. They'll say, come on, when you went down to Pattaya with your friends, you know, you must have played. And I really didn't. I can't, you know, people don't believe me, but it's true. And I suppose that's why I'm still with her now. But I do know, I'm not going to name names, but I've got friends who would come down to Pattaya for a weekend. And yeah, they did play about, but they were married to either, you know, West English women. The reason I went down to Pattaya with them is because back then I liked to party. You know, the bars were open all night. It's drinking. I used to smoke 40 cigarettes a day. That's all gone now. But we used to have a real good blowout, you know, for a couple of days. I was in the hotel industry and it's so stressful. And to actually go down to Pattaya for a couple of days and just totally blow out. You don't drink, do you, Michael, at all? No. You told me.
Or smoke.
Have you never sort of drunk? Is it just something you're not into? No. Have you a question I haven't asked you?
Motorcycle racing.
Yeah, that's you're into the motorcycles big time. It looks like you're sitting in the Starship Enterprise there behind you with all them screens, but I know that's all to do with your business, isn't it? You have it's a worldwide business. It's not just in America. So just to kind of this has been I've enjoyed talking to you, Michael. It's been a good experience talking about this, and hopefully people who ask that question and say, how could the guy have been so stupid? I hope we've given them a little bit of insight into that. Some people won't change their minds. But one of the final questions I'd like to ask you, have you I know you've been to Thailand several times, but have you ever visited Pattaya? Have you had first-time experience of it, or have you not been there?
Yes, unfortunately, I made the mistake of riding my bike down there.
Unfortunately,
on the Songkran water festival holiday.
Okay.
So,
Songkran.
Songkran.
Where they throw the water.
Yeah. So every time I came out of the hotel on my motorcycle, I had buckets of ice water thrown on me.
I know.
Like when they throw the water on you, another place in Thailand, it's just like a bucket of water at room temperature. But down there, most of the buckets of water were full of ice, like I got from a hotel or something. So you're riding your motorcycle, and someone's got like not a little bucket like they do maybe somewhere else, but they've got like a trash bin out of the hotel room, and it's full of ice water, and they hit you with 25 kilos of ice water while you're riding the motorcycle. But I like you, if I want to go to that kind of beach environment, if you want to be close to Bangkok, you don't have time to get to Phuket or down south. To me, Hua Hin is much more nice area. If
you listen to my streams regular, you'll hear me mention I prefer Hua Hin now. If I was 30 years of age, I wouldn't want to go there. I'd want to go to Pattaya because it is a real party town. But when you get to our sort of ages, I'm 61 now. Hua Hin, you know, Michael, you've been there yourself. It's very nice. They have lots of nice restaurants. There is a bar scene.
And that's even too big for me. I go right up north to Cham, and which
Cham's
is
lovely,
even quieter than that. And because I just like to fish and ride the motorcycle and swim, and I don't drink, and I don't want to be around a party scene or anything. But
so there's no chance when I'm in Thailand, when I'm in Soicowboy in Tilak Bar or somewhere like that, I'm not going to bump into you in one of those bars then, because you're not going to be in that environment.
I'll come down there to see you because I always like experiences. I had a Ukrainian girlfriend years ago, and she went to Amsterdam, and she taught me to go into a coffee shop. I only went once in my entire life. I'm glad I went. It was an interesting experience. I would never be found in one before or after, but I went that time. It was quite interesting.
That's one place I haven't been, Amsterdam. Like I'll get guys say to me, "Oh, you want to go to Amsterdam? It's it's got everything there." But I say to them, "Look, I don't go to Thailand specifically for girls." They assume that if you go there, it's for girls, and that's why I've never been to Amsterdam. So I don't. I mean, if I went to Amsterdam, I'd want to go for the cultural experience, have a look at the city. I wouldn't be hanging around the red light area. I've seen it on TV. It doesn't look particularly exciting after Thailand.
It's a tourist trap.
Is it? Yeah. Okay. Right. So I think I'll tell everybody now. You're going to be a regular guest on the streams or videos, whatever you want to call them. I don't want to let the cat out the bag and tell everyone what we're going to do next week. But I know, because if I tell everyone, someone might jump in and get it before us. So we're good. Michael and I hopefully will be back next week. And we've got a great subject. It's something that people ask me all the time. Unfortunately, I don't have enough experience of that. Try not to give it away. But we're going to do a two-parter. So it'll be half a part one and a part two. Michael will probably do most of the talking because I'm married, so I nearly gave it away. So I'm not going to say any more.
Well,
but Michael will be.
What you could say without giving it away is that while we can't talk about the exact subject matter, is that the format will be slightly different. Instead of telling about the problems that men have, these series of videos are going to focus on the strategy and things men can do to have good results.
Yeah. That's a good way of putting it. So in other words, if you go out there and certain things have happened to you, we'll kind of tell you a different way to do things so you have a much more successful trip. It's something like that, right, Michael?
That's it.
I wish I could tell everybody, but I don't. I know what YouTube's like, and I don't think I will at this point. But Michael, thank you very much for coming on the video again. I think people will find this. Hopefully, they'll find it not only entertaining but a little bit educational as well. And I'll look forward to hooking up with you again next maybe Wednesday or Thursday to prepare a video for Saturday, Sunday.
Okay, very good.
Yeah. Okay. So from the UK, it's bye for now, and hopefully hook up soon.
All right, talk to you soon. Bye, Peter.
Okay, Michael. Thank you.
สองมือของพี่ยืนมาประคองยืนปลอบใจน้อง